And joining us now on middays, we've got Speaker of the House, Philip Gunn. Good morning or good afternoon, Mr. Speaker.
Hey, Gerard, thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I couldn't get there. I'm caught in traffic, but thanks for having me on anyway.
Yes, sir. Understand. So, big day in the state of Mississippi with the Supreme Court ruling on Roe v. Wade. What might we expect from Mississippi's lawmakers?
Well, let me first of all acknowledge what a historic day this is and just how significant this is. It's profound. It's a profound development probably in all of our lifetimes. And the first thing I want to do is give thanks to God for making this day happen. We have to acknowledge the fact that this is brought about solely because God ordained it to be brought about. And I think it's the first thing we have to acknowledge. The second thing I want to say is thank you to all the people of this nation who have prayed for the last 50 years for this to happen. We cannot forget that God has answered those prayers, that he's been gracious and merciful to answer those prayers. The third thing I would like to do is thank the members of the House of Representatives who voted on this back in 2018. I just had a press conference right before lunch, and I did it on the House floor because I wanted to acknowledge the significance of the fact that back in 2018, the members of the House of Representatives had the vision to fight this fight. And we see today the fact that they did not grow weary of doing good, and today we see the fruits of that. And I want to acknowledge the efforts of those members of the House of Representatives back in 2018 who made this happen. Secondly, I want to acknowledge the efforts of the senators who voted on this. The bill left the House, went to the Senate. Then Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves and the senators brought it out of committee and passed it. And then we have to acknowledge Governor Phil Bryant, who has always been a long champion for the pro-life cause, who signed that bill into law. We now see today that Lynn Fitch and Scott Stewart's efforts at the Supreme Court were helped bring this about as well. And if anyone listened to what Scott Stewart argued, it was just phenomenal. He did an especially great job on that. And then finally, thank the United States Supreme Court, these justices who stepped up and showed courage today to do what was right and good and acknowledge and uphold the Constitution. We must be grateful for their efforts as well. So all those things are to be celebrated. I wanted to acknowledge the efforts of all those people, but particularly thank the members of my House who led out on this issue and made it happen. As far as going forward, before lunch, when I had this press conference announced that the work is not done. We have fought for this day. We have fought for the lives of the unborn. We fought for the sanctity of life. And now we've got to go forward and make sure that we provide the care and the compassion that we have long since fought for with fighting for the unborn. There's more work to do. And so I have formed the Speaker's Commission on the Sanctity of Life. I plan to bring together industry professionals, crisis pregnancy centers, medical professionals, those who have been fighting for this cause, churches, Republican women, anyone who has an interest in making sure that we continue the fight for those who are going to be born. That's what I want to do. And so we're going to form this commission. We're going to look at legislative items that we can possibly do to see what the next steps are. And so that's kind of where we're headed. Hopefully we'll bring forward some legislation next session that will continue to fight this fight. So that's kind of where we're headed.
What about the so-called trigger events, trigger laws, Mr. Speaker, that might be automatically triggered, enacted into law? I guess they're bills enacted into law, right, based on this this ruling. Do we have that situation, and what does that mean?
That's exactly right. We already have a trigger law on the books back in 2007, I believe it was. We passed a bill back then that basically said if Roe versus Wade is ever overruled, then abortion would be banned in Mississippi except for rape and the life of the mother, I think is what that law says. And so today we see that Roe versus Wade has been overruled, and so the trigger law should go into effect, and it will immediately ban abortion in Mississippi except for rape and life of the mother. So we've already been one step ahead on that.
Gotcha. So are you concerned about possible reaction, even violence that may ensue from the pro-choice factions in this state, first of all, and across the nation?
Well, certainly never. I never endorse violence. This is a highly emotional issue, but we believe that the Supreme Court got it wrong in 1973. There is no constitutional right to an abortion, and it's clear, and that's what the court said today. There is no constitutional right, and so there's nothing there for them to create a violent environment based upon. I would certainly encourage people to acknowledge the ruling of the Supreme Court, honor it. That does not mean that. I mean, what they said today was that each state can now make decisions for themselves. So, for those who say that there will be no abortion, I doubt that will be the case. I think some states will open the floodgates, and they will have no restrictions on abortion. What we have responsibility for in Mississippi, however, is to make decisions that we think are consistent with the values of Mississippi citizens. And it has long been the belief and the practice of our state to be very much pro-life. We believe in the sanctity of life and the right of that unborn child to be born. And I think in Mississippi, we have stated where our position is. But other states are not going to adopt that view. Other states are going to have abortion on demand, I'm sure. But in Mississippi, we now can do what our legislature thinks is right and appropriate for our people, consistent with our values. And I think I heard Aaron Rice on there before me, and I think he said it well. Let's just not outlaw abortion. It just returns it to the states for each state to make their own decision, which is where it should have been from the beginning.
Yeah, just from a political perspective, Mr. Speaker, it's kind of ironic that the party who's been pushing to implement all sorts of federal level disinformation organizations and entities is the one that's spewing the disinformation, or certainly implying it, and that abortion is totally outlawed. And that's not the case. We've got to get the truth out there, and I appreciate you coming on and saying that. But in the state of Mississippi, we may decide through our lawmakers to totally outlaw abortion, but there could be neighboring states that have different laws.
Absolutely, and that's what the Supreme Court has done, is return it to the states for their decisions, which is where it should have been all along. So we are incredibly excited about this decision, very excited about the fact that the state of Mississippi and the House of Representatives in particular led on this issue. I know that when this was debated back in 2018, there was a little bit of fatigue, and some people said, hey, we're clear where we stand on abortion. We don't want to take up another bill, but we encourage them to not grow weary in doing the fight. We talked about this within our Republican caucus and made the decision to push forward with this bill. Yes, we've been clear where we stand on abortion. Yes, we've got plenty of bills and cases on the books that show that we are a very much pro-life state. But we do not need to grow weary of doing good. We brought this bill up again, one more time. It passed the House, and the rest is history. And it began, and I think Mississippians can be proud in knowing that this landmark case, which has changed the landscape of abortion in Mississippi, started right there in the House chamber of their very own state capitol, and they can be proud of that fact.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is incredible, and much credit goes to you and the members of the House for having the fortitude and the foresight to start this, even really against fairly difficult odds at the time. You guys knew that.
Well, and that is why you never grow weary of doing good, because yes, there's opposition, and we knew it was going to be challenged. Every bill we've ever passed has always been challenged by the pro-choice movement, and every one of them ended up in federal court. Some of them survived, and some of them were struck down. This is one that was struck down, but fortunately, it worked its way through the system. And at that time, when you go back to 2018. You keep in mind the Supreme Court was not as favorable. I think at that time Donald Trump had only had one appointment to the court at that time.
That's my point. You knew you had to get a more friendly court.
There was no guarantee at that time that it was going to be upheld, but we nevertheless pushed forward. And, of course, again, going back to the fact that God was in control of all of this, he knew that in the next few years there would be new appointments to the Supreme Court, and he knew that Donald Trump would get 2 more appointments, and that those people would be inclined to uphold the Constitution and read the Constitution in the way it was drafted, and this bill would survive.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Speaker, thank you so much, sir, for taking time out of your day on really short notice to join us here on Middays, and really appreciate your insight there, and look forward to talking to you soon, sir.
Well, thank you so much, Gerard. It's an exciting day for Mississippians, and I look forward to talking with you further about this.
Yes, sir. Middays, we'll step aside right here. We're at Mississippi Blood Services. We got Brittany coming on next. Stay with us.